The riflemen of the 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment were in the thick of battle. The commander of the battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore, was the last man to leave the battle.
I have a feeling that if there's one thing that should be taken across to the American people by every news media we have in this country, from the United States, is that we have the best American soldier I think that the world has ever seen.
One year after they were married, my mother had my first brother. And then a year after that, had the next one. And then 3 months after that, he was in Korea, in the Korean War. And she was left here in Auburn, Alabama with 2 children under 2 years old. She's a wife, a mother of 2 sons, and her husband is off in a war, and she doesn't have the 24-hour access that people have today. And so they wrote a lot. They wrote a lot to each other.
I believe he wrote maybe 117 letters home. He had the discipline, no matter what was going on, to sit down every night and write a letter home.
Dearest Julie, and thus passes another Christmas in the Far East. 4 out of the last 8 for me have been over here, and I hope no more. I sure hope you and your wonderful family had a good Christmas at home along with our precious babies. I opened your Christmas packages on Christmas afternoon, and I can't thank you enough for the wonderful gifts. The stationery set is number 1, and I'm sure I'll enjoy Hemingway's book along with the peanut brittle. Notebook paper really needed too. My Christmas to you was rather skimpy. If mental telepathy could carry the love I have for you, you would never be lonesome. All my love, Hal.
In Korea, he was very explicit about everything that was going on. And to include being dumb enough to say, ooh, I had a close call today. Now in Vietnam, he was explicit about, we're going out on an operation, we're fighting against a PAVN regiment, things like that. But he never talked about what he was doing during Vietnam.
At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, on the 13th of November, the brigade commander, Colonel Tim Brown, showed up, dropped in a helicopter, and he said, Hal, you got to go into the Ia Drang Valley tomorrow morning. You've got 16 helicopters, and your mission is to search for and destroy the enemy.
Dearest Julie, before our first combat mission, one of my cooks of all people kind of shamefully gave me a St. Christopher medal to wear and quietly walked off. It has protected me well so far, and I have faith that I will be okay. However, I would not be truthful to you, to myself, or to my men if I didn't accompany them where the going is the toughest. That is where the commander must always be, to get the proper appreciation of the situation and to take the necessary action for the accomplishment of the mission. All my love, Hal.
When we hit the ground at X-ray, it was all quiet. Then shortly after we had been on the ground for about maybe 45 minutes, one of my companies captured a North Vietnamese prisoner. And he said there are 3 battalions of PAVN troops on the mountain above us. They want very much to kill Americans, but they have not been able to find any. And I knew then that we were in for a hell of a fight.
1,000 U.S. 1st Cavalry troopers have been pinned down and all but encircled by 3 battalions of North Vietnamese regulars, perhaps 2,000 men. Early today, B-52s came to the rescue, dropping more than 350 tons of bombs on the communists. It's estimated at least 350 of the North Vietnamese were killed, but the survivors still held their positions along the mountainside tonight.
The brunt of the enemy's human wave attacks has been taken by General Custer's old unit, the 1st Battalion of the 7th Cavalry.
Hal Moore was the best soldier I've ever met. What he did was immediately realize The survival of this battalion is dependent on our holding this landing zone. He was able to keep things in focus. He immediately changed the plan. We were able to eventually hold out and kill a lot of bad guys. And I was just lucky as hell to be in his unit.
After the battle at LZ X-Ray, all the reporters show up on the third day and all did interviews. When you watch what was filmed, and they had Dad on at the end, and he was crying because he lost so many of his troopers.
You must excuse my emotion here, but when I see some of these men go out, the way they have, I can't tell you how highly I feel. They're tremendous.
There was no reaction other than stunned silence. That was probably the most horrible experience of the entire war, I know for me.
Dearest Julie, probably by now you know that we took on a North Vietnamese regiment of 4 battalions and cut it to pieces. My men were great. We paid a price which I do not like to think of. I will tell you later who we lost. We all were fighting. Thanks to God, I can write you this note. We were brought into here yesterday afternoon for rest and reorganization. Morale is sky high. These men are great. I love you, and I will write soon with more details. All my love, Hal.
And there's a PS in that letter saying, I came through without a scratch. I don't know why. Could you imagine getting that letter? Oh my God. Let me collect myself here a minute.